Hey guys, welcome to our last science module, module 11. So this one I think you'll find very interesting because we actually get to start human anatomy. So we're kind of taking a turn from the characteristics of life and moving on to what our bodies are actually made of. Now, unfortunately, we are only going to be able to talk about three main areas for human anatomy. Even though there's lots of different systems in our bodies, we're only going to be talking about the superstructure system, I guess you could say. And this superstructure is dealing with skeleton and joints. Those kind of go together. And then muscles and skin. So this is the main areas that make up the structure of our body. But not necessarily make it work per se. So again, this is module 11, and skeleton and joints kind of go together because joints is made up of bone and cartilage, and those are what connect skeleton to muscles. So joints are kind of the in-between area. So there's two types of skeleton though. There's endoskeleton and exoskeleton. So endoskeleton, and like always, I will post a picture of these notes. But endoskeleton bones are anything that represents an organism that has a backbone or a vertebrae. Okay, so you can think of mammals, fish, reptiles, birds. Anything that has a backbone is going to have an endoskeleton type of structure that makes up their body. So, like I said, example of organisms: humans, mammals, which we are mammals, of course, reptiles, fish, birds, anything with a backbone. And what makes these guys special is that our skeleton is actually inside of our body. So underneath the skin. So you can think of endo means inside. Because we would look kind of funny if we were walking around with the skeleton on the outside of our body and we didn't have any skin covering it. So we have an inside skeleton, which means endoskeleton. Now, the vertebrae, also known as the vertebral column, is just what makes up our backbone, okay? And this backbone is very special because that is what sets us apart from either having an endoskeleton or an exoskeleton. So this backbone is a very particular type of bone that all of us have to have. The axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton, which we'll get to here in a second, these are the two main types of skeleton that is attached to the vertebral column. So you have your upper part and then you have your lower part, but all of it is kind of attached and working together, and it originates essentially from the vertebrae. So the axial skeleton is the portion of the skeleton that attaches to the upper part of your body. So it's your rib cage bones, any bones in your head, neck, and your trunk. Okay, now the trunk, of course, is just another name for the upper part of your body. So axial skeleton is the upper portion of your body. All the bones that make up that upper portion is going to be considered part of your axial skeleton. Okay, and these are just some bones that are located in your rib cage, head, neck, and trunk. So the vertebral column, of course, is your backbone. The orbit is your eye socket. So we do have bones, of course, that surround or that protect our eyes. So that would be the eye socket. And then, of course, your skull is your head. Sternum would be your chest bone. And rib cage would be your ribs. Now there's lots of other ones, of course, like your clavicle, and of course like your your arm muscles, and there's other bones in your head that we're not talking about, but these are just some of the main ones to remember. Now, the appendicular skeleton is the portion of the skeleton that attaches to the axial skeleton along with your limbs. So actually, I misspoke when I said that arms would be part of your axial skeleton. Arms are going to be part of your appendicular skeleton. Okay, so axial skeleton is the main part that's attached to your vertebrae, and then the appendicular skeleton is attached to the axial skeleton pieces. So your pectoral girdle is going to be the clavicles and the scapula, which is your shoulder blades. So this is the main part that's going to attach your limbs to the rest of your body. And then your pelvic girdle, that's the lower part, that would be your femurs, of course, your hips. So your femur, of course, is the bigger bone that makes up your leg. And then the femur is attached to the coxa. You have two coxa, which makes up your hips, and then the sacrum is your tailbone. Okay, so think of it kind of like this. Actually, let me just show you. I'll wait to show you a picture here in just a second of what I'm talking about. So first it starts at the vertebrae, then it expands out to the axial skeleton, and then it expands even further to the appendicular skeleton. So we are building and building and building on top of each other until we make up a human body. And I'm going to go ahead and continue on with part of the appendicular skeleton. So let's just talk about your limbs and your legs for a second. So your limbs would be considered your arms. So the upper part of your arm is humerus. The lower part is the radius and the ulna. Of course, that would be your forearm. You can even write that in if you'd like. And then your legs, we have the upper part, which is your femur, also called thigh, and your patella, which would be your kneecap. And then the lower part would be kind of like your shin in a way. That would be your fibula and your tibia. So notice how the upper parts of your arms and legs is made up of one big bone, and then the lower part of your arm and legs are made up of two smaller bones. And that is what, those smaller bones is what allows you to twist your wrist like that, up and down. And then also you can do the same thing with your foot and ankle. So again, this is just some extra stuff that is considered to be part of your appendicular skeleton. So you have your foot and the ankle, and we're not going to talk about all the little bones that make that up. Your hand and wrist. You have coxa. You have two of those that make up your hips or your pelvic area. You have your sacrum, which is your tailbone, scapula, which is your shoulder blades, and clavicle, which would be your collarbone. Okay, and then also, not only do we have bones that make up these body parts, but we also have cartilage that helps us be able to have a little bit of flexibility with these movements. So it's a flexible material that attaches to your sternum and rib cage. So there is going to be cartilage that is actually in between the sternum and the rib cage. And then you also have cartilage in between your vertebrae. And then you also have cartilage in between your cocci, which would be the two coxa that makes up your hips. So these are the flexible areas that we need in order to move the way we move. And let me just kind of fast forward to this picture because I want to kind of show you this. And I colored it for a reason. So your axial skeleton, remember, is the main parts of your body. So anything that is blue is your axial skeleton. So you have your skull, your orbit, you have your rib cage, and you have your sternum, and then you have your vertebrae. Okay, so those are the main areas that make up your trunk. And then this red part is the cartilage that's in between those. So the cartilage allows your lungs to be able to contract and expand in order to gain air. So when your lungs expand and contract, then your rib cage and your sternum also needs to be able to expand and contract. So that's what that cartilage is there for. It allows your lungs to be able to do their job. Okay, and then everything that is in black is going to be your appendicular skeleton. So notice how the appendicular skeleton is attached in some way to something blue. So you have your humerus, you have your radius and your ulna, your hand and your wrist, of course. You have your clavicles, and then over here on the back you would have your scapula, which is your shoulder blades. And then you have your two coxa, or cocci, that makes up your hips. And then you have your femur, patella, and then you have your fibula and your tibia. And then your foot and ankle, of course. And then your sacrum, you can see on the back side here, is your tailbone. And we'll review this picture again on the next video. But that will actually conclude the first video for just the skeleton and the types of skeleton that we have in our body. On the next video, we'll talk more detail about what makes up our bones. So enjoy this and have a wonderful day, guys.